Hello everyone. First of all, thank you very much for organizing and inviting. The second speaker today, Urku, was telling us about electrons moving across living organisms. And I think he was giving us a very nice overview, try to tell us how those electrons are actually interacting and moving across a different part of the living part. So my talk, more or less following the same line. However, I'll be focused on photosynthetic organism, and more than telling you how, I want to tell you why we're doing that, why, whether there are possible applications for this technology. Let's start by defining photosynthetic organism. For photosynthetic organism, I include three: plants, algae, microalgae, and I'm pretty much sure that nobody will be surprised if I'm telling you that from those organisms we can generate fiber, biomass, fuel, and food. However, if I'm telling you that we can actually generate electricity, this could be a bit more new for some of you. So generally, when I deliver this talk, many people ask me, how does it work? So I'm gonna cheat a bit in the sense that I'm not going to tell you exactly how it works. It's gonna take a bit longer for that, but I try to prove you that actually electrons can be generated out of photosynthetic organisms. So to do that, I will start with something common to everyone: water. So water, in a very convenient way, the molecular formula of water is quite common, H2O. And H2O is telling us what water is made of. So there are definitely the H are protons and O is oxygen. But there is a missing part. So in order to balance the two positive charges carried by the proton, there are also two electrons. So water is an excellent source of electrons. To prove you, so the little things that was given to us today, I think is carrying about 2,200 milliamps hour. So in a glass of water, more or less this size, so you're carrying 180 ml of water, actually would be enough electron for charging about 240 of those. So, of course, this is in principle, because in water, electrons are nicely stable, therefore not necessarily taking those electrons out of water is very simple. However, plant knows how to do it. So through a process that is called water photolysis, plants are able to take water and, by using the energy of the light, split it in proton, oxygen, and electrons. Can I prove that? Maybe. Proving you that plants are able to generate electrons is not straightforward. But proving you that plants are able to generate oxygen actually is much easier. Well, first of all, I can tell you that the 21% of oxygen that we are breathing actually coming from plants. But again, you need to believe me. It's not necessarily a proof. So more than 300 years ago, a guy called Priestley ended up doing an experiment where he put a candle under a dome and he sealed. The candle burned by consuming oxygen. So if you put some plant inside the dome and you give enough light, either you're gonna burn off all the candle, or at least you're gonna elongate the time on which the candle can burn. And the reason is because the oxygen is coming from plants through photosynthesis. And again, production of oxygen is linked with the production of electrons. So to embed this in something that is more useful takes a bit of steps that unfortunately today I'm gonna skip. But I brought with me a small proxy. So in this one we're having some photosynthetic cell inside of this chamber, and they're actually generating a bit of electrons. So again, I'm not going to tell you too much about the mechanism on which this system actually operates, and try to focus on what we can do with those electrons. So if you really want to know a bit more how it works, how much we can generate, what the conditions, what the limitations are, these are publications that been out in the last few years. I'm pretty sure we can disseminate those slides, and if you're interested, you can read them. So therefore, I really want to answer this question. Is this technology feasible? So can we do anything about this? And my answer is, well, it depends from the condition. So what I want to say is, so if you got the same tomato and you are in Sicily somewhere, the tomato doesn't really value too much. But the same tomato in Glasgow during the winter could be far more valuable. So the point is, powering a kettle with this device here probably is not really a great deal. But having this device giving you a bit of power in a situation where there is no electricity at all, that is a completely different ball game. And I try to understand whether are there any of these situations where those devices can be very valuable. I'm gonna give you a few examples. For some of those, I'm gonna go through very, very quickly. I try to focus on one. So the first one is a project that we are doing in collaboration with some colleagues from India and some colleagues from Cape Town in South Africa. So the idea is we try to combine the process of bioelectrochemistry, photobioelectrochemistry, with wastewater. In this specific example, what we're gonna do, we're gonna use this little amount of energy that we're gonna generate through photosynthesis to power sensor for probing the quality of water. So the idea is we create a unit powering a water system, telling us the quality of water. A second example is related with education. In fact, I think we should then talk about this later. So we end up putting together some prototypes, working in collaboration with this design school based in Barcelona, and this prototype was made by students. I absolutely love it for several reasons. First of all, because it's almost pretty much all made by using recycled material. So the external body, as you see, is a recycled plastic bottle. The anode material is made by using aluminium from a drinking can that in a very surprising way works very well with algae. And all the electronics part and the cathode are embedded inside of this 3D printed lid. Initially, we were using recycled plastic for 3D printing, but then worked out that the recycled plastic is actually more expensive than the virgin one, so I believe this one is made by virgin plastic. Also, what we can do, and in some respect, Urku was giving you some indication about this. So, if we are able to interpret, to understand why cells are producing electrons, by reading the profile of electron output, perhaps we can understand something about the metabolism of the cell. So instead of using the current, we use the signal, we use the information that the current is carrying. So this can be a way to develop a new tool of investigation. And this could be important for people working in the lab. But in a more extended way, perhaps following the same concept, if one of these is actually embedded in a big field, this is a paddy field of rice, and we actually end up building up a system operating with rice, by interpreting the signal of current output, we can actually understand the quality of life of the plants in the paddy field. So instead of probing and try to understand whether we need more or less water, more or less chemical treatment or whatever, but based on some sensor, we can actually interrogate the plant itself. In my view, that would be very powerful, and in some respect, by spreading the planet with this system operating with plants, maybe we can create an internet of plants. Another example is actually related with some activity that we're doing with you guys, with ARM. It's something that I'm not going to tell you too much about this, because in this way I'm going to force you to come back tomorrow, because Marin is going to present this project. So this is for tomorrow. And I'm going to spend an extra couple of minutes on this project. So this project is actually done in a collaboration with the Zoological Society of London. And a couple of years ago, Alistair and Rachel, they contacted me and they asked me, they said, well, we have several environmental sensor and camera trap operating in a tropical forest. And they are very important for project of conservation. However, powering this system with classical solar panel is not ideal. It's not ideal for several reasons. First of all, because you put in place your system, and after no longer, a plant will cover the solar panel. The second is apparently wild animals love to damage something that is shining. So they were telling me, we've been reading on the news about what you're doing. Can we power one of our environmental sensors using a biological mean? And I said, well, I don't know, depends. How much power do you need? So work out what they need is actually not very much. It's about 5,000 millicoulomb at 5 volts per day to run the system. And so I went back to one of my results. So this is something that we published a couple of years ago. This is called a polarization curve. It's telling you how the potential between an anode and cathode is falling down while you are taking more current. So in principle, the best performance are sitting right in the middle of the curve. But I prefer operating under the optimal performance. In this way, I can avoid to drain too much current from the system. So this is an example of compromise. By taking, say, 350 millivolts, we are draining 17 milliamps per square meter. So if we need to reach 5 volts, I know there are several ways to do it. If we're just thinking to put together 15 systems, we can do it in terms of voltage. And then in terms of current, we just need to have a system that is at least 34 centimeters square. So I like to say not very much. I mean, feasible. Forests are quite big, so in terms of space, we are not really having trouble in this respect. Of course, there are conditions that we need to be respected. For example, we cannot implement in a forest a plant that is indigenous from a different habitat. So therefore, we're gonna build up the system here. We're gonna test it first in the London Zoo, in the tropical house of the London Zoo. But then the system without any biological material will be brought to the Peruvian tropical forest, down there is going to be colonized with indigenous plant and be operated. So there are quite a few question marks. So we don't really know whether it's going to work in reality in that environment, but the conditions are really optimal. So plants are growing all the time. Conditions in terms of light temperature are great for plants. So in principle, in my view, this is the one of example of those tomato in Glasgow in winter. In reality, this is a sort of an artistic view that we use when we were looking for the monies for the grant application. This was an artistic view of the system. In reality, probably we're gonna build up something that will look like this. Well, this is again is without plants. So in conclusion, what I try to tell you today is taking electrons from a living organism is not going to give us mega amps or megawatt. Definitely, but it's definitely able to give us milliwatt or watt. And this could be valuable in a specific situation, a specific condition. And I try to be focused on understanding where and how these specific conditions are, and I try to understand how actually make the system operating well in that specific condition. Those are, as I said, a few examples. I need to say thanks to the people that help the project in my lab, and also people from Cambridge, Imperial Zoological Society of London, Cape Town, India, and ARM. People that pay the bills. And thank you for your attention.
Of plants, where do you get the electrons from physically?
Okay, in terms of plants, the plant itself is doing photosynthesis, but then the plants end up living in combination with bacteria in the soil. So plants tend to release some of the organic that are made by photosynthesis in the soil where those bacteria are living. And the bacteria are picking up those organics, they oxidize these organics and generate the electrons. So
then, if I may, following on from that, can you imagine a scenario where you get it directly by interfacing the plant?
We try. We try with a very simple plant. In an evolution of plants, we can distinguish between a vascular plant and non-vascular plant. Vascular plant, strawberry is a vascular plant. Mosses are non-vascular plants. And if you check the physiology, non-vascular plant are a bit easier. So we try with vascular plant, and we create we force some mosses, Fiscomitrella pattern, to grow directly on electrode. And we try to get some electrons out of Fiscomitrella directly. The result was pretty poor. Then when we start introducing some bacteria, the current shoot up. So I would love to be able to do it, but so far, unfortunately, that was the hypothesis that we tried to verify with the study, but unfortunately was rejected.
Either one. So, your wastewater treatment using the higher plant, what's the power output?
Well, in that one, is in some respect is a bit easier because the bacteria are fed by a bit of nutrients coming from the plants, but are also fed by the organics carried by the wastewater. For that one, we can easily go up to few watt, so easily to be enough to power environmental sensor. And actually, what I really hope that initially we can put in place few square meters just for powering the environmental sensor, but in the long run we can actually extend to hundreds of square meters, reaching perhaps 50, 100 watt. That again doesn't really sound a great deal for us, but where we're carrying that experiment in Bangalore, Bangalore is about 12 million people city. It's a huge city, and is regarded to be the Indian capital for IT. So I'm pretty sure, given your job, guys, many of you know Bangalore. Point is, even in Bangalore, there are a couple of million of people living without access to electricity. So for some people, they live there surrounded of a super technological place, but without electricity. There are several reasons for that, and one of the main one for Indian government sometimes is difficult to give this service to everyone, especially when a person is not contributing to the GDP of the country. So we can be in a situation where there are people next to the system where it's generating power without electricity. So if we are able to give even a few watts to these people to charge a mobile phone or even a small computer, that could change the life of people.
For one of the self-contained kind of devices that you showed, what would be the lifetime of this device?
So we have prototypes working for month and month. So in that respect, durability is not necessarily a big issue. What might be an issue is not necessarily the current output is always what we expect. So, but in terms of durability, is not an issue. I mean, I'm not expecting the same cell are alive for forever. Some are gonna die, others gonna take over.
I mean, do you need to feed the plants?
Yes,
Honestly?
light.
Only light. No other matter.
No, because I don't want the biomass to grow. So when the biomass reaches a certain level and the electrode is all colonized, as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy. So the only feeding I want to feed light to perform photosynthesis and produce electrons.
What would be the efficiency, especially comparing the area between one of those systems and solar panels?
Other question? No, I'm joking. So the answer is not great at all. I mean, the best one that we were able to claim is in the region of 0.1%, something like that. So this is why I'm trying to be very realistic in what we can do. This is why I said we need to understand where those few milliwatt are very valuable or not. So.
See any effects back on the plant by doing this? So does the plant produce more, does more photosynthesis or grows more slowly or something?
Let me see if I go on a slide for bodies. No, unfortunately no. We've been testing, we're doing a comparison between some grass, wired versus grass unwired. And we were checking the amount of biomass accumulation over time on the two systems. So far there is no statistical difference between the two systems. On the other hand, I really hope at some point we can chip into the metabolism without killing the plant, but by taking a bit more electrons. But so far, no. So far, there is no difference.
Any other questions?
So just one last one. It's more of a plug for tomorrow. Tomorrow, Shiro Maina from Data Science Africa will talk
Yep.
as well. And monitoring tomatoes in greenhouses is a big use case in Kenya. So maybe
All right, yeah, brilliant.
catch up with that and power them by.
Which section? Do you know?
I don't know which section.
Okay, I can check.
It's in
Yeah.
the
Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And